Hi, and thank you for joining me once again for the Darren Chatter solo cast, where I read my blogs to you so you don't have to. This is blog number 260, and it was written on April 1st, 2021. The title is called A Much Better Approach, and the photo that goes with it is a chart in two different pieces. The top part reads, How We're Taught to Measure Success. And it has a circle that's divided exactly in half, and one half is by your salary and the other half is by your job title. The bottom part is completely different. The bottom part reads a better measure, and it is the same circle, but it is divided in multiple parts. Job title and salary are the smallest sliver of the pie chart. Other things such as free time and liking what you do and physical health and mental health take up the rest of that pie chart. That is the way that we should be measuring success in this world. So with that said, I'm going to kick off and read the blog to you and maybe add a few thoughts in at the end as well. Oh yeah, finally a chart that depicts exactly what I think about this topic. This should be a standard thing taught in high school and colleges as well. We as a society are far too hung up on things like job titles, positions, possessions, and the like, and viewing life in this mode changes the approach dramatically. Ironically, lots of people do come to the conclusion at some point later on in life that things should be different. So the question is, why not save the headaches and the heartaches along the way and start thinking about this more appropriately now? That, to me, seems like a much better approach. Like I always say, I have made these mistakes and I am speaking from experience. So here we go. I was in love with the idea that I was a pro racquetball player and you weren't. And by you, I mean everybody else. It was my differentiator. I thought it was something that made me special. Clawing and scratching my way into the top 20 in the world was a monumental task. And one of the main fuels for that journey was that I got to introduce myself as Darren Shank Pro Racquetball Player. Most people had no idea that A, there was a pro racquetball tour, and B, that it was a dog and pony show masquerading as a real sport. I furthered the facade talking about the U.S. Open Racquetball Championships being broadcast on the Tennis Channel and then eventually even on ESPN. I tried my best to boost the status of the sport, which in turn elevated my own status accordingly. It was all about my perception it was all about the perception of my place in the world. The reality is I was unhappy throughout most of my racquetball career. I feel like I had this thought process of I made this choice and I made the sacrifices to make this happen, and I'm going to make it no matter what. I had unbending intent about this, and it almost ruined me in a way. I put entirely too much pressure on myself to reach my goals and to prove that I was right and everyone else was wrong. They were wrong about me not making it to the top, that it would derail my college plans, their college plans, and I would be poor in the process, and that I would be way behind in starting my working career so much later that there would be disadvantages to this. I didn't handle the pressure of all this very well. I pushed through it, trying to pack it down deep enough to not bother me. It did, and it manifested itself in anger most of the time. Looking back, I should have retired at least a year before I actually did. When I finally did reach my breaking point, I was completely lost. I had no backup plan, and I was flat broke. I spent more money than I was ever close to making, chasing the dream that I had committed to so long ago. It took me a good 6 months to get my feet under me again and head down a different path that separated me from Darren Shank Pro Racquetball Player. That had truly been my identity for far too long, and I needed to rediscover who I was as a person as part of my retirement from that sport. My work career has been a wide and varied path, and I never settled into one particular thing. I did some form of sales or account management for several different companies in several different fields. In some ways, this taught me not to wrap up my identity in a job title or position, because I was always the new guy, and therefore I knew less about what I was doing than everyone else. By leaving a job after about 2.5 years on average, I never reached a comfort level with any one particular role. It was very similar to my racquetball career in the sense that I never felt like I was the expert at anything, and that I always had to let others stand in the spotlight. Fast forward to today, and I have learned a lot more and grown quite a bit. I have been in my current role for the past 8 years, and I've been with the company since its inception. My title has been the same since day one, Vice President of Sales. In our first 2 years, we didn't have a clue what we were doing. In years 3 and 4, we struggled to stay afloat. I took a 50% pay cut, as did the rest of the management team, just to keep the company going. Finally, by year 5, we landed our first major deal and partnership, and the industry finally started to notice us. Now, I walk into a presentation to a Fortune 500 company with all the confidence of someone that has a backstage pass. I present our services to the biggest companies in the US and win far more often than any of my head-to-head competitors do. I am finally the one standing in the spotlight. I am playing the match on the showcase court with the cameras rolling and the crowd cheering. Having been through this humbling experience, I introduce myself as Darren all the time. I don't tack on my last name and my job title in effort to impress someone. I have finally learned how to have much more impact, and that is to have somebody to discover these differentiators instead of me force feeding them as soon as we meet. It is a clear sign of confidence in who I am overall. I don't need to outshine everyone when I walk into a room. I am happy to sit in the back and take it all in, and then walk up on stage when it's my turn to do so. I don't need to sit at the head of the table with the CEO. A side table with the rest of the crew is fine by me, and by the way, it's usually a lot more fun. So when you see the second chart above, that is how I live my life now. I am far more focused on the quality of my life instead of the perception that others have it. I drive a car that most people would consider less cool than the one I did when I was only making $30,000 a year at my first job post-racquetball. I don't own a custom suit. I don't wear a big expensive watch. I avoid the typical status symbols that make so many, including my former self, that so many people get sucked into. I focus on doing things that make me happy and setting my future up to be as financially easy as possible. I want to have options of when to retire, where to live, to travel, and have other great experiences. Financial freedom affords a lot of choices, and that is my definition of rich. I don't need millions in the bank and to only travel by private jet. I don't want to go party in Vegas in a cabana for $1,000 a day. I want to go fly fishing in Montana with my dad, with no one else around. My focus is now on doing what I want, not what I think others will think is cool. The chart at the top is how to structure a life of happiness, focusing on the right things, and particularly inward instead of outward, gives you a good shot at achieving a happy life. If you are wrapped up in the trappings of success and your perceived image, you are easily impacted by the opinions of others. When you really have your own life tightened up, running smoothly, and you enjoying the life that you have, you are winning. It doesn't matter what your address is or what car you drove to get there. Putting energy and effort to the things like your mental well-being, your own health, and other areas that are not tied to a bank account certainly will be in your best interest. Please learn from my mistakes. Many people get sucked into living on the hedonic treadmill and that type of lifestyle, and they pay a heavy price until they learn to pull the plug and jump off the machine. Stop allowing social media, movies, and worst of all, quote-unquote reality television to be your measuring stick that you use to judge yourself and the world by. It is a path to moral and financial bankruptcy in many cases. Live below your means, invest for your future, and set yourself up for a life based on the second chart, not the first. If your self-image is tied too closely to your job and your external trappings of success, you are vulnerable. Getting fired would be devastating, and it would crumble your world. If you have a job and a balanced life, you are far more resilient and adaptable. In my opinion, that is the way to go. As always, I wish you luck in your endeavors. I know that I have talked on this topic a bunch of times in a bunch of different formats, and the message is pretty much always the same. But I really, truly want to hammer home this point because I learned this the hard way, and I somewhat knowingly caused myself a lot of headache and heartache in the process. If I had been smart enough to listen to some people in my life that are of this mindset that I am now, much, much earlier, I probably would have been in a happier place, in a place of more stability and freedom a lot sooner in my life than at age 50. It took me a long time to get here, and I don't want others to have that same type of struggle when it is truly unnecessary to do so. All you have to do is figure out what to change, how to live a little differently, and make your life easier. And believe me, you will be the benefactor of that for sure. If there's anything I can help you with in terms of these types of things, please reach out to me through my website or find me at Darren Chatter on LinkedIn, and I would be happy to assist in any way that I can. Again, I wish you luck in your endeavors.